Hey friends! Okay, so this is actually just an exercise or like a sample project that I'm showing you guys. This is all about how to use texture and watercolor, and I'm going to show you like 4 different ways that I use texture. Some of them are just simple, like I will start with a variegated wash, very simple, and then with a variegated wash, then we make a scene, like a nature scene, trees in the woods or something. It's so fun. And we're going to glaze, we're going to use some mixed media to make some mark making, a tie-dye with wet onto wet, and then like a moon, a misty moon, wet onto wet. So we're gonna have a lot of fun, and this is a great way to just kind of play with your watercolor. By all means, this could be totally different, but I wanted to share with you how I like to create texture and have bright colors in my watercolor toolbox. So come with me, it's going to be so much fun, and we are going to just have a blast doing these textures and watercolor. Probably here and here. You could also probably cut this if you wanted to, but we're just going to divide this into 3. And it's okay that it's not totally perfect, but you just want to divide, you want to have 6 shapes, right? Okay, so texture and watercolor and how to make different marks and lines is really just a matter of preference, and it's really, I find it therapeutic to make textures and just simple motifs. And so for the first one, I just want to do a variegated wash, and a variegated wash is usually like 2 or 3 colors and they mix together on the paper. It'll be close to primary colors, but I think it'll work out. The other thing that I like to do with my palette is I also like to spritz it down with some water. That makes it go really nice. And because I love this violet blue, I'm going to go straight into this, what I would call mauve color. And I always say, paint with colors that you love. And so I did not actually put a towel on my paper and under my paper, so I'm gonna have to just paint and be careful. But I just want it juicy. This is a very juicy, I would say though it's more water than pigment. It's like 50-50, and that sounds about right. Now I'm gonna go in with my blue. Let's go in with a, oh, this is a teal turquoise. I would call this a turquoise blue. It has a little bit of green to it, but it's going to look really pretty next to the purple. Ooh, almost reminds me of a sunset maybe. And with it being really wet on my palette, look at that. I don't love mixing watercolor in my palette unless I have to. I like mixing it on the paper. And now, because I have this nice turquoise blue happening, I'm going to go in with this beautiful lime green. I believe it's called leaf green, but it's really pretty. And I'm going to go in here. And this is a variegated wash, and so it's not flat. It's just fun. You can make these different washes all the time. You can do this in like an afternoon. Just make different colors that you like, play with it, let it dry, and then go on and doodle on this section. So it's really fun. Okay, so we're gonna go on. We're actually gonna use this one. This is gonna be called a flat wash, and it is one color, and you're trying to get it as flat as possible so there's no streaks or anything, and that takes some practice, but I think we can do it. I'm going to go with a lighter color, and I think I'm going to go with yellow ochre, and I'm just going to get my brush really wet, and I just start at the top and I work my way down. I will say a flat wash is not something I do often. I only do this like, I won't do a whole big block like this either. I will do like, probably the most I do is about 2 square inches. Like that's about as much flat wash I will ever use. But it is a fun way to just be very, I don't want to, it's very therapeutic. You can kind of see the beautiful colors that come with it. Now if I were to add maybe a darker orange to it, that could work too. And so I'm getting streaks, and that's okay. It's because I don't have enough pigment on my brush. So I just start again, and every time I move, I add more pigment. And you get this nice flat wash. You also have to make sure you have enough water on your brush. So water and pigment, and it has to be very consistent. And every time, like, it does take some practice and patience to get a flat wash. Alright, that is a flat wash. Flat enough. It looks a little streaky. It probably will be. That's okay. This paint is great for beginners for the most part. Maybe not as great with flat washes, but like I said, I don't use flat washes too often. I'm loving how this is turning out to be. We're gonna let that do its thing, and then we can always doodle over it. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna do this square right here. I'm gonna show you how I like to do wet into wet. So I'm gonna get my paper really wet, just where my pencil line is, right, my square. And we're gonna do tie-dye. I have been in like a color mood. I want some tie-dye. This will be fun. All right, let's start with a brighter yellow. Let's start with this yellow. This is light yellow. It can be whatever. And we're just gonna dab in. We're gonna do a swirly tie-dye. I think that would be fun. Swirly tie-dye, why not? And we're gonna add in some bright orange, red. And I'm going to add that right in here, and maybe I'm just going to whoosh, do some tie-dye like that. That's going to look pretty. I'm going to let that be. Now in my mind's eye, I'm also thinking, okay, I got to remember what colors I'm using. I'm going to do orange. I don't know if the red and the yellow are actually going to mix well, so I'm going to put an orange right in here. Orange right in here, whoosh! There, that'll look more tie-dye like. Now I can go back in with red. Maybe what I'm really wanting, I will do a little bit of red, because I don't want, I'll do red right in here. I don't necessarily want the orange mixing with the red. Ooh, look at that, that is looking really cool. Now I can go in with a purple. Let's go with that beautiful mauve color that I was using before. Oh, look at that beautiful mauve color. Woo! That's really fun. Oh, sometimes all you need is color to brighten up your day. Alright, and now because I love this beautiful blue, we're going to do this blue. Woo! And it's just going to kind of do its thing on the paper. I love painting like this. There, that is like a wet into wet. It's wet on the paper and you just let the watercolor do its thing. And how pretty is that? That is just gorgeous. Okay, now let's do a galaxy. Same sort of thing here, but let's do a galaxy. We're gonna go with a really dark blue. We're gonna start with this blue. It's like a death blue, or maybe even phthalo. And we could get our brush, we could get it wet. I'm gonna show you another trick. I like to just spray my paper. And I'm gonna go ahead and get, yeah, this is like a deft blue, or maybe even a Prussian blue. And this is very wet into wet, very fun. I'm gonna go into a purple. I still have this mauve color. You could do a dioxazine purple, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of this to it. Not a ton. Here's my dioxazine purple. The mauve has more red to it, and the dioxazine has a bit more blue to it. And remember, this is just like our sample sheet, but I don't necessarily want this to go on top. So I'm going to take my paper. You definitely need lots of paper towels or regular towels or something. And this is just one way to get texture. There's lots of different ways. Let me clean that up. This is why I always have a towel. And I don't like to tape my paper because it doesn't matter to me. Anyways, alright, we're playing and we're having fun. Alright, and if your paper is looking a little less dry, you just add more water to it. And this is really thick watercolor, but ooh, I'm loving how it's moving on the page. I'm going to add more dark blue here. Maybe this is more like a moonlit. I really love this white right here. It almost reminds me of a moon. I think I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to add some more of this beautiful mauve color into here. And there's going to be like my moon. It's going to be a very, like a summery, I don't know, a clear night with all the different blues in the sky. And without even cleaning my brush, I'm just going to go back in with the mauve. And I'm going to do this a couple times. Like, I could be done with just one layer, but I want it to really pop. So I'm going to do another layer. And while this is all wet and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and just wipe out some of the, just make the moon shape. It's going to be like a full moon, maybe on a misty night or something. And then, because I have metallic in this set, I'm just going to add some of the silver right into it. And that's just going to add to the moon mistiness of it. And maybe I want some stars, so I'm going to splatter. Really make it look like a moon. There we go. I'm going to leave that alone, let that dry. I see that I splattered up here, so I can clean that up really easily. We're going to let that be. I see a bunch of water beating up right here, which we don't necessarily want. So I'm going to clean that up. Alright, we're good there. Alright, let's do another energy wash. This is I call this an energy wash. It's very much like a variated wash. But we're going to just try some colors. We're going to try, I really like the idea of doing like a burnt sienna and maybe some blue or something, some darker blue. So, when I'm thinking about variegated washes, I'm thinking about like nature, and this one is very indicative to nature. I'm thinking of trees in the background of trees, and this may work. I don't know. We'll see. But I wanted some like orangey red and some blue, and so this is this is what I'm getting, and that's okay. I really love the rust and the rust orangey color and blues together, and I'm loving how that's working out. I didn't love the red by itself, but when I put the blue with it, oh, so pretty. And I do feel like that red needs to be a bit more dominant, so I'm gonna just bring back some more of that red. And now I'm gonna leave it alone, and I'm just gonna let it be. Now what I could do is I can move my paper and maybe add some more of this darker blue and just watch it run on the down. And I can do that same with this blue. And just watch it run. Now with a clean brush. Alright, I'm going to leave that alone and let that kind of do its thing. It'll dry and come back, and it will look like maybe like a forest. And I call this energy washes because it gives me more energy. It gives the paper and the pigment more energy. And that's what Jean Haynes calls it, is energy wash it. And she is one of the most famous watercolor artists right now. So anyways, all right, we're going to let this dry. We'll come back with this one in just a second. Alright, so for this one, I wanted to do another flat wash like this, and you could use a flat brush, but most times I always seem to have a round brush handy, so that's what we do. But I wanted to do another flat-ish wash with blues, just blues, and we're gonna go with the same. I really want it to be dark, so I'm gonna go with this dark blue, like Payne's gray-ish deft or Prussian blue. It's becoming, it's just a nice blue color. And don't worry, we're going to add to it. This is just a start. There. We're going to let that dry. And now we can probably move on to this one again. This one is probably good, but let's make the white really white and make the dark stand out even more. I really love doing night skies. So we're going to get that same blue that I absolutely love, and we're going to do, this is now not wet into wet, so I got to be a little bit more careful. And it always dries lighter. Watercolor always dries lighter. These are fun experiments to do if you want to get better at your watercolor. So that's pretty well wet. I'm going to go straight in here. And I do have to remember kind of where I put my colors. Like I know I used mauve and dioxazine purple. So I'm just going to go back in and just kind of make those colors happen a bit. It's getting darker. I can see that. That's looking really cool. I'm going to go with my dioxazine purple. I think it's also just called, you can also call this like violet. And now I don't want a harsh edge on my moon, so I'm gonna clean up my edges just a little bit, soften those edges. I'm alright if I have a little bit of an edge, but I don't want a whole lot of edges. Okay, there, that's looking really cool. I'm going to add a couple more blue spots. I don't want it to look like I just went and did a circle. I want it to look like a sky. Like clouds or something. A little bit more blue maybe up on top of here. There. And still wet into wet. There we go. I'm going to clean up that because I don't really want blue in my moon. I can a little bit. That's not the point. And I don't really want blue on my tie-dye. Something like that. Okay. There. Now we can go back in and do our next layer. This shouldn't matter too much. Now, if I were doing something more important with this, maybe I would let it dry and just pick up those, but this is just for fun. Let's start with this. So what I wanted to do, well, let's start with something easy. We'll start with this. So this is just a variegated wash. This was just to get us started, to get us to play, right? I have little cards like this where it's just watercolor and I just play with it. And so I was just going to leave it like this. The other thing I could do is I could just add, I could do the same thing again and just go back over it almost like a glaze. If I didn't love how it turned out, I could go back over it. Ooh, that's working. Okay. And then I did mauve. So we can go back in with this. Add that. And then we use this lime green, which I absolutely love. A little bit more. But I like to think of this as just a free, very free. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, I'm really loving all of this. I'm gonna leave these three alone, and I wanted to work on these three right here. So let's start with something a bit easy. We're gonna make like little pebbles, or like maybe you could do mountains as well if you wanted to. I'm thinking pebbles, but just something. And this is really just mark making. I could just do ticks, or I could do like anything I wanted to on top of this, right? I think of this as a blank canvas, which is kind of fun, but I thought pebbles might be fun. And so I'm gonna make little rocks. Some of them are gonna be big, some of them are gonna be small, and I'm gonna go in with different colors. This is why I like using like a palette with lots of different colors, and just go in and add some color and let it blend on the paper. limestone. Limestone is kind of a like a cream color. Anyway, it's kind of fun. Okay, but you guys get the idea. Like, I could go on, and we're gonna let this dry. But this is just a simple activity. I'm gonna show you how I would paint this, maybe in a more artistic way. So I have this beautiful red and this beautiful blue, and it's very natural. And so I'm gonna take a smaller brush, and we're gonna just make, we're gonna do a tree motif right up here. And I'm gonna start with, I really like to have a little bit of that red and that blue together. So this is where my palette comes in very handy. So I'm going to take that same red and that same blue that I used, and we're just going to get some of that red in. Woo-hoo! Looking good. Okay. And now some of that beautiful blue. And I don't need as much. And now I'm going to mix it together. And I'm going to get this browny purpley color, and it's very blue. You can see that it's much bluer than it is red. So that just means I need more red. More of that burnt sienna red color. That looks about right. Alright. And now I'm just going to make my trees. I had a friend that said she loved seeing my trees, but this is such a fun little motif. It does remind me of winter. And I'm going to add just a little bit more of this lighter brown. And I'm just going to go up. I'm really just making lines here. It could be very abstract if you wanted it to be. And then I decided, yep, this tree needs to be a little bit thicker, and so does this trunk. It probably doesn't have to be, but it is. Trees are fun to paint. And if you're not quite sure where you think you need a trunk, you can always decide kind of what you're thinking. But ooh, I'm loving that. That's a pretty tree. That's gonna. And then just with the brush, and the pigment's already on the brush, I'm just moving it. I always like to go in the winter to my local state park and just look at the trees. And we have a lot of I call them weed trees, but I think they're like walnut trees. They get they're just skinny, and they have all these little branches that come off. And I'm just gonna add. We just have a little thin, little wispy trees all over the forest. Some of them are oaks. There, I like that. That looks very, very expressive. And all I did was just add some watercolor, and then I just grew trees, right? I can also add grass. And maybe I want to just add blue to the grass, so I can do that too. I added a lot of brown. Let's add some blue to it. And there we have this really pretty two-color landscape happening. And all I did was just have a vision in mind from the beginning to the end. So this is the last one that I wanted to work with, and I'm actually going to use a white colored pencil. And white colored pencils can really make for fun textures on watercolor. We are done with that. I got my white pencil. It's a Prismacolor pencil. And I'm just going to start drawing lines. And my idea here is to make some waves. And you could do this with like any kind of pattern that you love. You could do scallops, you could do hearts, maybe for Valentine's Day, or shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day. These little patterns are totally endless and so fun. And there's no wrong way to do them. I'm just making waves because I think that's fun. And this is just practice. I know some artists will do washes like these, and then they'll make like birds, and then they'll go in and they'll add deeper colors to them. I've also seen artists, instead of using a white pencil, they use pastels, or they use gel markers, or even Sharpies. But there's another idea for that. And how pretty is that? So anyways, we got our little sampler of different fun things that we can try. And now this whole watercolor world has been open to even more possibilities. And so I always say paint is never wasted when it's out of the tube. It's only wasted when it's in the tube. So get your paint out, play with your paint, try and find some fun things that you like and that you want to try, and have fun learning and exploring watercolor textures. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.